I'm standing at my mother's grave on a cold Tuesday morning, and I'm thinking about a man I've never met. The man who killed her. The police told my brother it was a robbery. A simple robbery gone wrong. But I know better. I know that my mother didn't die because of bad luck. She died because of me. And I've spent the last 25 years of my life as someone no one at home ever knew. My own family had no idea who I really was. And that secret? It just cost my mother her life. If you've ever felt the weight of a lie that destroyed everything, hit like, subscribe for more betrayal stories, and comment your city or country. Let's begin. The cemetery is empty except for my brother Mason and me. No cousins. No family friends. No one. Just us, standing on opposite sides of a wooden casket that's about to go into the ground. Mason is wearing a black suit that doesn't fit right. He looks like a ghost. His hands are shaking. He's 32 years old, but right now he looks like he's 12. Like he's the little brother I'm supposed to protect. I haven't seen Mason in 4 years. For years, the priest, Father Dominic, is saying words that sound like they're coming from underwater. Something about peace and eternal rest. Something about her being in a better place now. I'm not listening. I'm thinking about the last time I saw my mother alive. It was March, 7 months ago. I showed up at her house unannounced because that's what I do. I show up. I stay for a few hours. I don't tell her anything real. I leave. She made me pot roast that day. She asked me if I was eating enough. She asked me if I was happy. I told her yes. I lied. My mother's name was Eleanor. She was 68 years old. She worked at a community center teaching art to kids who didn't have much. She loved gardening. She collected teacups from estate sales. She called me every Sunday at 6 p.m., and I never answered because I couldn't. The calls would go to voicemail, and then I'd listen to her voice on Monday morning when I had time, and she'd say the same thing. "Hi, sweetheart. Just checking in. Hope you're doing okay. Call me back when you get a chance. Love you." 2 weeks ago, I got a call from a detective named Evan at 3 a.m. He told me my mother had been murdered in her home. Stabbed. They found her in her kitchen. The back door had been forced open. Her purse was on the counter, still full of cash. Her jewelry was still on the bedroom dresser. Her car was still in the garage. It was a robbery gone wrong, he said. That's what he said. I was in Vienna at the time. I had to get on a plane. I had to come back to a city I haven't lived in since I was 23 years old. A city where I spent my whole childhood. A city where everyone I knew had stayed and built lives, and I had disappeared into something I couldn't explain. Mason finally looks at me from across the casket. His eyes are red. His jaw is clenched. When the priest finishes, they lower the casket. Mason wipes his face with the back of his hand, and I can see his knuckles are bruised. Fresh bruises. Purple and yellow. "No. We need to talk," he says quietly. "Not here. Later." I nod. I don't say anything. As they're filling the grave, my phone buzzes in my pocket. It's a text from Blake. Blake was my handler at the agency for 17 years. He's the closest thing I have to family at this point. The text just says, "Call me. Now." I ignore it. Because I already know what he's going to say. I already know that this wasn't a random robbery. I already know that my mother's death has my name written all over it. And I know that the moment I start asking questions, everything I've hidden for 25 years is going to come falling down like a house of cards. Mason walks away from the cemetery without waiting for me. He gets into a blue truck that I don't recognize. Before he drives away, he rolls down the window and looks at me. "Mom kept a picture of you in her nightstand," he says. "The one from your college graduation. She looked at it all the time. I found it after she died. You looked so happy in that picture, Riley. Like you actually knew who you were." He doesn't wait for me to respond. He just drives away, leaving me standing alone at my mother's grave. And that's when my phone rings. It's not Blake. It's Detective Evan. He says he needs to see me. He says there's something about my mother's death that doesn't add up. He says it's urgent. He says it can't wait until tomorrow. Something in his voice tells me that my life, the one I've been carefully building in the shadows for 25 years, is about to collide with my past in a way I can't control anymore. I'm about to find out that everything I thought I knew about my mother's death is wrong. I'm about to find out that my own family might be connected to the people who killed her. And I'm about to realize that the sacrifice I made, staying away, staying hidden, staying silent, didn't protect anyone at all. It just delayed the inevitable. Detective Evan sits across from me in a small interrogation room, and he slides a photograph across the metal table. It's a picture of my brother Mason. But Mason isn't alone in the photo. He's sitting in a nightclub with a man I don't recognize. A man with scars on his neck and cold eyes. A man who looks like violence. Evan taps the photo with his finger. "This man ordered your mother's death," he says. My stomach drops, because I realize in that exact moment that my mother wasn't killed because of who I am. She was killed because of who my brother chose to become. I don't say anything. I can't say anything. I'm just staring at this stranger's face, trying to understand how my mother ends up dead because of a photograph. "His name is Victor Castellano," Evan continues. He's talking slowly, like he's giving me time to process. "He runs this entire city. Loan sharking, drugs, weapons, money laundering. You name it. Victor has his fingers in it. And your brother, Mason? Your brother is in debt to him. We're talking $20,000. Maybe more by now." I close my eyes. How did Mason get involved with someone like that? I ask. Evan slides another photograph across the table. This one is of a woman. She's beautiful. Dark hair, red lipstick. The kind of beautiful that makes men forget who they are. "Her name is Giselle," Evan says. "She's Victor's girlfriend." Was his girlfriend. 3 weeks ago, she was found at a hotel with another man. Your brother's best friend, Colin. And your brother was with them, Riley. Your brother was with Victor's girlfriend. For 2 months. Behind Victor's back. I feel my jaw clench. Mason, my little brother. The kid I used to protect from bullies in middle school. Mason is sleeping with a mob boss's girlfriend? They weren't careful about it, Evan says. They went to nightclubs together. Hotels. People saw them. Word travels fast in this city. And word definitely travels fast when you humiliate a man like Victor Castellano. I think about Mason's bruised knuckles from the cemetery. They make sense now. Victor doesn't forgive betrayal. Evan continues. Not like normal people. When you take a man's woman and parade her around the city like a trophy, Victor responds. But not with a phone call. Not with a conversation. Victor responds with violence. The question is, who does he respond against? Evan leans back in his chair, studying me. Victor first sent men to find your brother. They couldn't locate him. Mason was smart enough to run. He went to your mother's house. He thought he'd be safe there. He thought his own mother's home would be a place where Victor's people wouldn't touch him. My chest gets tight. But Victor's men went to that address anyway. Evan says. They went to intimidate your mother. They went to get information about where Mason was hiding. They figured she'd talk eventually. They figured she'd give up her son's location to protect herself. He pauses. His eyes are steady on mine. Your mother didn't give him up, Evan says. She fought back. She was brave. Stubborn. She wouldn't tell them anything. So the situation escalated. What was supposed to be an intimidation turned into a struggle, and then it turned into something worse. I already know what he's going to say, but I need him to say it anyway. They killed her, Evan says quietly. But here's the thing, Riley, Victor didn't order her death. That's important. Victor ordered them to scare Mason into the open. Victor ordered them to hurt someone he loved. But murder? That was on them. That was a mistake. That was a rogue soldier going too far. Where is Mason now? I ask. Protective custody, Evan says. We put him in a safe house the day we figured out what happened. He's terrified. He won't stop crying. He keeps telling me he killed your mother. He keeps saying that if he hadn't made the stupid choice to be with Giselle, none of this would have happened. He's right, I say. Yes, Evan agrees. He is. But it's not that simple, is it? He stands up and walks to the small window in the interrogation room. From where I'm sitting, I can see the city through the glass. The same city I grew up in. The same city I left when I was 23 years old. I need to tell you something, Evan says, and his voice changes. It gets quieter, more serious. Something that's going to complicate this entire situation. I wait. We've been investigating Victor for 5 years, Evan says. 5 years, Riley. Every time we think we're going to take him down, something happens. Evidence disappears. Witnesses change their stories. Judges throw cases out. We've always wondered how Victor stays so protected. How a man doing this much damage stays so clean. He turns around and looks at me directly. Then we started looking at your history. We looked at your background. We looked at the gaps in your life. The places you've been that don't match any civilian employment record. The connections you have. I feel my hands go numb. You work for the government, Evan says. It's not a question. You work for an agency that I probably can't even name. And somewhere, somehow, Victor Castellano figured that out. And instead of going after you, which would be suicide for him, Victor did something smarter. He protected you. That's impossible, I say. Is it? Evan asks. Because we found records, Riley. Victor's operation has been moving weapons through this city for years. Military-grade weapons. Weapons that shouldn't be here. Weapons that require certain clearances to move across state lines. And guess what? Those weapons keep making it through checkpoints. They keep disappearing before we can intercept them. They keep slipping through the system. He walks back to the table and sits down. He doesn't look angry at me. He looks tired. I don't know if you know about this, Evan says. I don't know if it's intentional or if Victor has just been clever enough to hide behind your work. I don't know if you're involved or if you're innocent. What I do know is that your presence in this city has made Victor Castellano untouchable. Your credibility, your connections, your reputation. Victor has been using all of it as a shield. I can't move. I can't think. Your mother is dead because your brother made a stupid choice. Evan continues. Your mother is dead because Victor runs this city. But your mother is also dead because somewhere, somehow, your life, the secret life you've been living, accidentally gave a monster the protection he needed to keep operating. He slides a folder across the table. Inside are photographs, weapons, shipments, dates. All of it connects back to times I was in the city. All of it connects back to operations I was running. All of it circles around my shadow like I've been unknowingly covering for a criminal organization. I need you to think about something, Riley, Evan says. I need you to think about whether you want to protect your family or protect your career. Because those two things are about to come into conflict. And when they do, you're going to have to choose. He stands up to leave the interrogation room. Your mother deserves justice, he says at the door. Real justice. Not the kind that hides behind classified files and government secrets. The kind that puts the people responsible in prison for the rest of their lives. Can you do that? Can you step into the light and tell the truth? Then he leaves me alone in the room with the photographs and the weight of 25 years of lies. And I realize that everything I thought I was protecting my family from, they walked right into it themselves. And I was too busy hiding in the shadows to see it coming. I walk out of the interrogation room and into the hallway. The fluorescent lights make everything look sterile and wrong. Evan is waiting by the water cooler. There's another man with him. Younger, sharp suit, FBI written all over him. This is Agent Blake, Evan says. He's from the federal level. He wants to talk to you. Blake extends his hand. I don't shake it. I know who Blake is. Blake has been my handler for 17 years. Blake trained me. Blake sent me into countries I can't name to do things I can't talk about. Blake was the voice in my ear telling me to survive. Blake was the closest thing I had to a father after my own died. But Blake never told me he knew about Victor. Blake drops his hand and doesn't seem surprised by my reaction. We need to go somewhere private, Blake says. Somewhere we can talk without ears listening. 20 minutes later, we're sitting in an unmarked federal building on the other side of the city. The kind of building that doesn't have a name on the directory. The kind of place that officially doesn't exist. Blake pours 2 cups of coffee and sits across from me at a metal table that's seen 1,000 interrogations. Your mother's death wasn't random, Blake says, getting straight to it. And Victor Castellano isn't just a mob boss. He's much bigger than that. I know, I say. Evan told me. Evan knows about 30% of the truth, Blake says. I'm going to tell you the rest. He opens a file. Inside are photographs of Victor. Not just nightclub photos. These are intelligence photos. Surveillance. Victor meeting with men in suits. Victor at airports. Victor in foreign countries. Victor with weapons. Victor Castellano started as a street thug, Blake says. But about 12 years ago, he connected with an international arms dealing network. Russian, Chinese. Weapons flowing through the Middle East. Weapons flowing through Africa. Weapons flowing through here. Through our city. Your city. How is that possible? I ask. Because someone on the inside was helping him, Blake says. Someone with access to shipping manifests. Someone who could reroute containers. Someone who knew which ports to use and when to use them. Blake slides a different folder across the table. Inside are emails, import documents, shipping records. All of it dated back years. All of it during times I was supposed to be running operations in this city. We didn't know it was Victor at first, Blake continues. We just knew that our weapons weren't staying where they were supposed to. We suspected a leak from inside the agency. We investigated for years. We followed every lead. Then about 5 years ago, we connected the leak to Victor's operation. And you didn't stop him? I ask. We tried, Blake says. But every time we got close to making a case, something fell apart. We realized Victor had protection. Federal protection. Someone inside his organization was giving him early warnings about investigations. Someone inside law enforcement was tipping him off. Blake leans forward. His expression doesn't change, but something shifts in his eyes. That's when we realized something else, Blake says. Something that was much worse. We realized that Victor's operation was running so smoothly because it had become invisible to us. It had become so integrated into the normal flow of things that we couldn't see it anymore. And the reason we couldn't see it was because Victor had attached himself to your work. I feel my stomach drop. You were running operations in the city, Blake says. Real operations. Real missions. Counterterrorism work. Intelligence gathering. You were doing your job perfectly. You were invisible. You were protected. And Victor figured out how to hide his weapons shipments inside your missions. He figured out how to use your cover to move his inventory. I didn't know about it, I say. I know you didn't, Blake says. That's what makes this so brilliant. Victor didn't need you to know. Victor just needed you to exist. Your presence alone was enough. Your credibility was enough. Your security clearance was enough. Every time you moved through the city, every time you had meetings with contacts, every time you were being watched or surveilled, Victor's people were right behind you, moving things, moving weapons, all in your shadow. How long has this been happening? I ask. 6 years, Blake says. Maybe longer. We're still investigating. And my mother? I ask, even though I know the answer is coming and I don't want to hear it. Blake sits back. For the first time, he looks uncomfortable. Your mother is collateral damage, Blake says. Victor didn't kill her because of you. Victor killed her because your brother made a mistake. But we're investigating whether Victor was testing something. Whether he was seeing how much pressure he could put on you before you broke. Whether he was trying to create a situation where you'd have to choose between your family and your duty. That's insane, I say. Is it? Blake asks. Because it's working, isn't it? You're sitting here right now, trying to figure out whether you turn Victor in and expose everything about yourself, or whether you stay quiet to protect your brother. I don't answer. There's something else, Blake says. He opens another file. This one contains interrogation records. Names. Dates. Information I've never seen before. We found out 2 months ago that Victor wasn't working alone, Blake says. Victor had a partner inside the agency. Someone feeding him information. Someone helping him move weapons. Someone who was actually running the operation with him. Who? I ask. Blake slides a photograph across the table. It's a man I know. A man I've worked with. A man who trained me on advanced surveillance techniques. A man whose name appears on every major operation I've been part of for the last 15 years. His name is Logan, Blake says. He's a deputy director of operations. He's been working with Victor the entire time. We just found out about it. We've been trying to figure out how deep this goes. We've been trying to figure out how many other officers are involved. I stare at the photograph. Logan, the man who gave me my first real assignment. The man who wrote my performance evaluations. The man I trusted. We're going to arrest him tomorrow, Blake says. And we're going to need you to testify about everything you know. About your operations. About the shipments. About Victor. All of it. If I do that, everything comes out. I say. My name. My face. Everything. I know, Blake says. My family will be exposed. I say. Mason will be exposed. Everyone will know what happened. I know, Blake says again. And it won't bring my mother back. I say. Blake doesn't answer. He just closes the files and looks at me with an expression that says he's sorry. But sorry doesn't mean anything right now. I need your decision by tomorrow morning, Blake says. Are you going to testify, or are you going to disappear? Because those are your only two options, Riley. There is no third way. There is no way to protect everyone. He leaves me alone in the room with the photographs and the impossible choice. And I realize something that makes my skin go cold. Victor didn't just kill my mother by accident. Victor killed her on purpose. Victor killed her to flush me out. Victor killed her to see what I'd do. Victor killed her to create a crisis that would force my hand. Which means Victor knows exactly who I am. And he's known for years. Which means Victor has been waiting for this moment all along. The safe house smells like stale coffee and regret. Mason is sitting on a couch with his hands wrapped in bandages. When he sees me, he stands up like he's been shocked. His eyes are red and swollen from crying. Riley, he says, and his voice cracks. I'm so sorry. Don't, I say. I can't hear an apology right now. I can't handle it. We need to talk about what happens next. Mason sits back down. He's lost weight since the funeral. His suit from 2 days ago hangs loose on him now. He looks like someone who's been hollowed out from the inside. Blake told me they're going to arrest Logan tomorrow. I say. They're going to arrest him and offer him a deal to testify against Victor. And they want me to testify too. Then testify, Mason says immediately. Put Victor in prison. End this. If I testify, everything comes out, I say. My name. My work. The operations. All of it becomes public record. You'll be dragged through it. Our family will be dragged through it. Mason looks up at me. There's something broken in his expression. Something that won't ever be fixed. I don't care, Mason says. Mom is dead, Riley. She's dead because I made a stupid choice. Putting Victor in prison won't bring her back, but at least it will mean something. At least it will mean her death wasn't for nothing. It's not that simple, I say. Why not? Mason asks. Why can't you just do the right thing? Because the right thing will destroy your life, I say. Because detectives will come asking questions. Because journalists will dig into your past. Because the men who work for Victor will know that you testified. Because you'll never be safe again. Mason stands up and walks to the window. There's a federal agent standing outside. Watching. Protecting him and watching him at the same time. I killed our mother, Mason says quietly. Do you understand that? I killed her. Every choice I made led to her death. I was with Giselle. I was cheating on my wife. I was borrowing money from people I didn't understand. I was doing all of it, and she died because of it. He turns around. I don't get to live a normal life after this, Riley. I don't get to go back to my job and pretend nothing happened. Paige is leaving me. She already moved out. She took our daughter. She can't look at me without seeing the man who got his mother killed. So my life is already destroyed. The only thing I can do now is make sure it means something. Blake is waiting for me outside the safe house. He's smoking a cigarette, which is something I've never seen him do before. Mason wants you to testify, Blake says. But you're not sure you should. If I testify, I lose my cover, I say. 17 years of work disappears. Every operation I was part of becomes exposed. Every asset I've cultivated becomes compromised. I know, Blake says. And Victor's operation is bigger than just weapons. I say. If Victor goes down, a lot of other people go down with him. People in government. People in law enforcement. People connected to countries we do business with. I know that too, Blake says. So why are you asking me to do this? I ask. Blake takes a long drag on the cigarette. For a moment, he looks old. Tired in a way that sleep won't fix. Because your mother's death has to matter, Blake says. And because if you don't testify, Victor walks. Victor goes back to his nightclub and his money and his power, and he lives the rest of his life knowing he got away with murder. He'll be in prison, I say. Logan will testify. You said you have evidence. Logan is going to disappear, Blake says quietly. I stare at him. What? Logan has a contact in the organization, Blake says. Someone who's going to help him leave the country. We know about it, but we don't have the authority to stop it without compromising the investigation. Logan was going to take a plea deal and testify, but his contact told him to run instead. So Logan is going to run, which means our case is going to be weaker, which means Victor's lawyers are going to tear our evidence apart, which means we're going to need your testimony to make it stick. You knew this was going to happen, I say. I suspected, Blake says. That's why I needed to talk to you first, to make sure you understood what you'd be sacrificing if you didn't come forward. I think about my mother. I think about Eleanor. I think about pot roast and teacups and a woman who spent her life teaching art to kids who didn't have much. If I testify, what happens to me? I ask. You disappear, Blake says. We relocate you. New name. New city. New life. You can't go back to the agency. You can't go back to this city. You can't contact your family without putting them in danger. So I lose everything. I say. Yes, Blake says. You lose everything. But you also get to stop living a lie. You get to be someone real. You get to have a life where you know who you are. He flicks the cigarette away. I need your answer by morning, Blake says. And Riley, whatever you decide, I want you to know that I'm proud of you. I'm proud of the work you've done. I'm proud of the man you've become, even if you don't know who that man is yet. He walks away, leaving me alone in the parking lot with impossible choices stacking up like bodies. I can testify and lose my identity. I can stay silent and let a killer walk free. I can try to find a third option and end up with nothing. There is no good choice. There is only the choice that hurts the least. And I'm not sure which one that is. I make the decision at 3 a.m. I'm going to testify. I'm going to burn down my life and expose everything because my mother deserves that. Because Mason deserves that. Because staying silent makes me complicit. By 6 a.m., I'm sitting across from Logan in an interrogation room. Except this time, I'm not the one being questioned. Logan is. And he's smiling like he already won. Logan looks exactly like he did 15 years ago when he first trained me. Same sharp jawline. Same expensive watch. Same confidence that radiates from him like heat. Except now I see it for what it is. The confidence of someone who's been playing both sides and winning. Riley, Logan says, like we're old friends running into each other at a bar. You look like hell. Your operation is finished, I say. Logan laughs. It's a genuine laugh, which somehow makes it worse. My operation? Logan asks. Riley, you don't understand what's happening here. You're still thinking small. You're still thinking like a field agent. You're thinking like someone who reports to Blake and follows orders. Where are you going? I ask. Away, Logan says simply. I have a flight out in 4 hours. Private plane. New passport. New life. By tomorrow afternoon, I'll be in a country that doesn't have an extradition treaty with the United States. By next week, I'll be sitting on a beach drinking something cold. He leans back in his chair. And you know what the beautiful part is? Logan continues. Victor is going to prison. Your brother is going to spend the rest of his life feeling guilty. Blake is going to pat you on the back for doing your duty. And nobody is going to know that I was the one running the entire operation. Victor was running it. I say. No, Logan says. Victor was useful. Victor had the connections in the criminal underworld. But I was running it. I was the one moving the weapons. I was the one choosing which shipments went where. I was the one using your operations as cover. Victor thought he was the boss, but he was just a puppet. I feel something cold settle in my chest. Your mother was supposed to be a message, Logan says, and his expression changes. It gets harder, more dangerous. She wasn't supposed to die. That was Victor's people making a mistake. But it worked out, didn't it? It flushed you out. It made you realize that hiding wasn't working anymore. Why did you do it? I ask. Why did you help him? You had everything. You had a career. You had respect. Respect? Logan asks, and he sounds genuinely confused. Respect from who? From Blake? From the government? From a system that uses people like us and throws us away when we're done? I was making $300,000 a year on my government salary. I'm going to make that in a month moving weapons. I'm going to make that in a month and never have to answer to anyone again. He stands up. The agent by the door doesn't move. Here's what you don't understand, Riley, Logan says. Victor is going to prison for life. The newspapers are going to call it a victory. They're going to call it justice. But you and I both know that Victor was just one small piece of a much bigger machine. There are 50 people like Victor operating in this city. There are 500 people like me inside the government helping them. You think putting one mob boss in prison changes anything? It changes things for my mother, I say. Logan's expression shifts. For just a second, I see something genuine flash across his face. Something that might be regret, or might be contempt. I can't tell which. I liked your mother, Logan says quietly. I met her once. At an agency dinner 5 years ago. She was proud of you. She kept talking about how happy she was that you were doing meaningful work. She had no idea what you were really doing. But she was proud anyway. He walks to the door. Tell Mason I'm sorry about his mother, Logan says. Tell him it wasn't personal. Tell him that in another life, we could have been friends. Then he's gone. The agent escorts him out, and I sit alone in the interrogation room realizing that Logan was right about one thing. Putting Victor in prison doesn't change anything. It just moves the pieces around. Except there's one thing Logan didn't count on. When I get back to the federal building, Blake is waiting for me with a file. Inside are bank records, wire transfers, dates, amounts, all of it connecting Logan to Victor's operation. All of it documenting payments. We found these 6 hours ago, Blake says. Logan's contact was going to help him disappear, but we were monitoring the contact. We intercepted the payment. We have proof that Logan was the one facilitating the weapons transfers. We have proof that Logan knew about your mother's death before we did. What does that mean? I ask. It means Logan's disappearance just became a federal crime, Blake says. It means we can freeze his assets. It means we can alert every country in the world to watch for him. It means Logan is going to spend the rest of his life running. No beaches. No peace. Just running. Blake closes the file. Your testimony is still important, Blake says. But now we don't need just you. Now we have documentation. Now we have evidence that doesn't rely on anyone's word. Now we have a case so tight that even Victor's best lawyers can't punch a hole in it. I nod, but I'm not feeling relief. I'm feeling the weight of betrayal that goes deeper than I thought possible. Logan trained me. Logan was the person I trusted most in this organization. Logan was supposed to be the good guy, and he was stealing weapons and helping a mob boss the entire time. Which means I was wrong about everything. Wrong about who I could trust. Wrong about what it meant to do good work. Wrong about whether my sacrifice actually mattered. All I know is that my mother is still dead. And that's not going to change no matter how many people go to prison. The trial starts on a Monday morning in October. The courtroom is packed. Journalists fill the first 3 rows. Curious observers line the back. Victor sits at the defense table in an expensive suit, looking completely unconcerned about the fact that he's facing life in prison. The prosecutor is a woman named Natalie. She's sharp. She's prepared. She's built a case so tight that Victor's defense attorney, a man named Quentin, can barely move. Natalie opens with the weapons shipments. She puts the documentation on screens. She walks the jury through every transfer, every date, every location. She connects the dots so clearly that even if someone wasn't paying attention, they'd understand. Then she puts Detective Evan on the stand. Evan testifies about the investigation, about the connections between Victor and the loan sharking, about the connections between Mason's death and the murder. Then she puts the coroner on the stand. The coroner describes my mother's injuries, describes the way she fought back, describes how long she suffered. It's brutal. It's supposed to be. The jury needs to understand that my mother wasn't just a statistic. She was a person who was murdered. Quentin's cross-examination is aggressive, but it doesn't stick. He tries to argue that the evidence is circumstantial. He tries to argue that the weapons transfers could have been authorized by the government. But Natalie has already prepared for this. She has documents that prove otherwise. Then I take the stand. I'm wearing a suit that doesn't fit quite right. I'm sweating under the fluorescent courtroom lights. I look across the courtroom and make eye contact with Victor, and I see something in his expression that makes my blood go cold. Victor is smiling. He's not smiling like he's winning. He's smiling like he already knew this was going to happen. Like he already knew I was going to testify. Like he's been waiting for this moment. Natalie walks me through my background. She asks me about my work. She doesn't ask me for specifics because those are classified, but she establishes that I have government connections. She establishes that I have access to transportation routes and shipping manifests. She establishes that I could have been used to hide illegal shipments. Then she asks the key question. Were you aware that your operations were being used to facilitate illegal weapons transfers? No, I say. I was not aware. Did you ever have suspicions? Natalie asks. I think about this carefully. I think about the times I noticed shipments that didn't quite add up. The times I asked Blake about inconsistencies, and he told me not to worry about it. The times I had questions, and Blake suggested I focus on my actual assignment instead. I had questions, I say, but I was told not to ask them. Natalie nods. She lets that sink in for the jury. Then she turns me over to Quentin. Quentin's cross-examination is designed to make me look like either a liar or a fool. He suggests that I could have been running the weapons operation myself. He suggests that I'm trying to make myself look innocent by blaming Logan. He suggests that the government is covering up my own involvement. But I don't break. I stick to the facts. I say what I know and I don't speculate on what I don't know. After I step down from the stand, there's a moment of silence in the courtroom. Victor is still smiling, and then his lawyer stands up with something. Your Honor, Quentin says, we have new evidence. Evidence that has just come to light. Natalie's face goes white. She wasn't expecting this. Quentin pulls up a document on the screen. It's an email from Blake to Victor, dated 6 months ago. In the email, Blake is offering to help Victor disappear if things get too hot. Blake is offering to provide false documentation. Blake is offering to create a cover story that would protect Victor from prosecution. The courtroom explodes. Journalists are yelling questions. The judge is banging his gavel. And Victor is no longer smiling. He's looking at me with an expression that says he just destroyed everything I was trying to protect. How did you get this? Natalie demands. Victor's lawyers provided it, Quentin says. Victor is prepared to testify that Blake, the federal handler of the witness, was actually the one running the operation with him. Victor is prepared to say that Riley was a willing participant in moving illegal weapons. I feel my world collapse. Blake isn't just my handler. Blake has been my partner in this crime all along. The judge calls a recess. I'm escorted out of the courtroom. Blake is waiting for me in the hallway. There are federal agents surrounding him. Blake looks at me with an expression that might be regret or might be contempt. I'm sorry, Riley, Blake says. I never wanted it to come to this. Then the agents arrest him. They read him his rights. They put him in handcuffs. They take him away. And I realize that I've been betrayed twice. Once by Logan. Once by Blake. The two people I trusted most in the world were both using me. The federal building is in chaos. Blake is in holding. Victor's lawyers are requesting emergency hearings. The media is calling it the biggest government corruption scandal in a decade. And I'm sitting in a small room with no windows, trying to understand how I didn't see this coming. Blake walks in with his lawyer. He's no longer in handcuffs, but he's suspended from duty. His career is over. His freedom is probably over too. He sits across from me and looks like a man who's aged 10 years in the last 3 hours. I need you to understand something, Blake says. I need you to know that I didn't do this to hurt you. You did this for money, I say. No, Blake says. I did this because I was tired. I was tired of sacrificing everything for a government that doesn't care about me. I was tired of sending men and women into situations where they'd lose their lives for nothing. I was tired of being the guy who makes the impossible choices. He leans forward. When Victor approached me 5 years ago, I was at a breaking point, Blake says. My wife had just left me. My daughter wasn't speaking to me. I had nothing but the job. And Victor offered me something simple. Help him move some weapons, and I'd have enough money to build a new life. I could retire. I could disappear. But you didn't disappear, I say. Because it was too easy, Blake says. Because once I started helping Victor, I couldn't stop. Because the money kept coming and it felt like power for the first time in my life. I wasn't taking orders anymore. I was making decisions. I was in control. You controlled me. I say. I protected you, Blake says, and his voice gets harder. Every time something went wrong with Victor's operation, I made sure it didn't touch you. Every time Logan tried to expose you, I covered it up. Every time there was a question about your involvement, I made it disappear. You had no idea what was happening in the shadows because I kept the shadows away from you. My mother is dead because of you, I say. Blake flinches. For just a moment, I see genuine pain cross his face. I didn't know Victor was going to do that, Blake says. I didn't know. Victor was supposed to intimidate your brother. Victor was supposed to scare him into paying back his debt. That was all. When your mother died, I was as shocked as you were. But you didn't do anything about it, I say. What was I going to do? Blake asks. Turn myself in? Destroy the operation and take Victor down? That would have exposed everything. That would have exposed you. That would have made your mother's death meaningless. So you covered it up, I say. So I let the investigation happen naturally, Blake says. So I let the evidence lead where it was going to lead anyway. So I stayed quiet and hoped that Detective Evan would figure it out on his own. And when he did, I ask. And when he did, I realized I had to make a choice, Blake says. Either I disappear and let Victor take the fall alone, or I help him by coming forward with a false narrative. I help him by making it look like the operation was bigger and more complicated than it actually was. I help him by throwing enough confusion into the case to make sure the jury questions everything. But Victor didn't benefit from that, I say. You just made things worse for yourself. Blake smiles sadly. Riley, Victor already knows he's going to prison, Blake says. Victor has had 3 decades of freedom. He's had enough money. He's had enough power. What Victor wants now is revenge. What Victor wants is to make sure that everyone who touched his operation goes down with him. What Victor wants is to make sure that if he can't win, then nobody can. I stand up to leave, but Blake stops me. There's something you need to know, Blake says. Something I haven't told anyone yet. Something that's going to change everything. What? I ask. Victor didn't kill your mother because of Mason's affair, Blake says. Victor didn't order her death. Victor's operation didn't want anything to do with your family. Mason's debt was real, but it was small. Mason's affair was real, but Victor didn't care. I sit back down. Victor's daughter was killed 14 years ago, Blake continues. She was in the wrong place at the wrong time. She was with a man who was in witness protection. That man was protected by the federal government. That man was protected by an operation that you were running. My stomach drops. The man's handlers wanted him to disappear, Blake says. They wanted him to stop being a liability. So they arranged for him to be killed. And Victor's daughter was with him. She died in the crossfire. Victor's daughter was 23 years old, and she died because your government decided she was acceptable collateral damage. Who authorized that? I ask. I don't know, Blake says. But I know it happened. I know Victor has spent 14 years trying to figure out who was responsible. I know Victor finally connected the dots back to your operation. I know Victor realized that you were the agent in charge of protecting that witness. I didn't know, I say. I know you didn't, Blake says. But Victor doesn't care. Victor doesn't care about facts. Victor cares about revenge. Victor killed your mother because your government killed his daughter. Victor killed your mother to even the score. Blake stands up. This trial isn't about justice, Blake says. This trial is about two men trying to destroy each other through the legal system. This trial is about a government that's willing to sacrifice innocent people to protect itself. And you're in the middle of it, Riley. You're standing at the intersection of all of this. And you have no idea which way to run. The guards escort Blake out, and I'm left alone with the truth that destroys everything I thought I understood about my mother's death. My mother didn't die because of Mason's mistakes. My mother died because of my mistakes. My mother died because I protected a man 14 years ago who had no business being protected. My mother died because she was the wife of the man whose daughter I failed to save. My mother died because Victor has been hunting me for 14 years, and he finally found a way to hurt me. The trial resumes, but everything has changed. The jury knows now that Blake was corrupt. The jury knows now that Blake was helping Victor. The jury knows now that the government might have ordered an assassination that killed an innocent girl. The jury is confused. The jury is angry. The jury doesn't know who to trust anymore. Natalie fights hard to regain control of the narrative. She brings in a new federal agent to testify about Victor's criminal history. She brings in victims of Victor's loan sharking operations. She brings in people whose lives were destroyed by Victor's decisions. But it doesn't matter. The damage is done. The government's credibility is shattered. Quentin uses every minute of this chaos. He argues that if the government was willing to lie about one thing, they could be lying about everything. He argues that Riley's testimony might be part of a cover-up. He argues that Victor is just a convenient scapegoat for the government's own crimes. By the end of the second week of trial, the jury is deadlocked. Nobody can agree on whether Victor is guilty or not guilty. There's a mistrial. The judge declares it. Natalie looks devastated. Victor looks satisfied. I'm waiting outside the courthouse when Blake's lawyer approaches me. She hands me a sealed letter. Blake asked me to give you this if the trial didn't go as planned, she says. I open the letter. It's handwritten. Blake's handwriting. Riley, by now you know the truth about your mother's death. By now you understand that this wasn't about Mason's mistakes or Victor's greed. This was about revenge. This was about a father trying to balance a cosmic equation by taking something precious from another father. I'm going to prison. Not for this trial, but for the other investigations they're opening. They're going to charge me with weapons trafficking, corruption, conspiracy, and 50 other crimes. I'm looking at 20 to 30 years. But here's what you need to know. I'm not going to testify against you. I'm not going to try to save myself by destroying you. I'm going to take this to the grave. Because you didn't do anything wrong. You were just a tool being used by people far more powerful than both of us. You were a good agent doing good work, and the system failed you. The system failed your mother. Victor might walk free from this trial. Victor probably will walk free. But I want you to know something that Victor doesn't. His daughter didn't die for nothing. Her name was Eliza. She wanted to be a painter. She was gentle and kind, and she had nothing to do with the criminal underworld. She died because the government decided that her death was an acceptable cost for national security. I hope you find a way to live with that. I hope you find a way to forgive yourself. Blake, I fold the letter and put it in my pocket. The retrial is scheduled for January. But I know something that nobody else knows. I know that I'm not going to testify again. I know that my story is finished. I know that I'm going to make a choice that will shock everyone. I go to Victor's penthouse. The security guards try to stop me, but I tell them I need to speak to Victor. They search me. They find nothing. They let me through. Victor is standing on his balcony, looking out at the city. He's wearing an expensive robe. He's holding a glass of wine. He looks like a man who's already won. Riley, Victor says, like he's been expecting me. I was wondering when you'd come. I'm not going to testify in the retrial. I say. I know, Victor says. I know you're not. I know you're going to disappear. I know you're going to let the federal government relocate you and give you a new identity. How do you know that? I ask. Because I'd make the same choice, Victor says. Because staying here would destroy your family. Because staying would mean defending a government that ordered the death of an innocent girl. Because staying would mean looking your brother in the eye and pretending that justice is possible in this world. He takes a sip of wine. Your mother was a good woman, Victor says. I meant what I said to Blake. I didn't want her to die. I didn't order her death. She died because my men lost control. She died because they were angry and scared and they made a mistake. Why are you telling me this? I ask. Because I want you to know that this isn't over, Victor says. Not the way you think. Not the way the government thinks. Revenge isn't a simple equation. Revenge isn't one person killing another person and then it's done. Revenge is a lifetime of knowing that the person you loved is gone because of your mistakes. He turns around to face me. I killed your mother to balance what your government did to my daughter, Victor says. But do you know what that made me? It made me like your government. It made me a murderer. It made me someone who hurt an innocent person to achieve a political goal. And now I have to live with that. And now I have to spend the rest of my life knowing that I became the thing I hated. So what? I ask. So this, Victor says. I'm going to disappear. I'm going to leave this city. I'm going to let my lawyers handle the retrial. And they're going to argue reasonable doubt. And the jury's going to find me not guilty because Blake poisoned the well. And then I'm going to leave. I'm going to go somewhere far away where nobody knows what I've done. And Blake? I ask. Blake is going to prison, Victor says. Blake is going to pay for his crimes. But I'm not going to contest that. I'm not going to make his life worse. I'm going to let the justice system do what it does. He sets down his glass. Your mother wanted you to be happy, Victor says. She told Blake that once. Blake told me that. She wanted you to have a life where you knew who you were. She wanted you to stop hiding. So stop hiding, Riley. Go disappear. Go build a new life. Go find peace. I leave without saying anything else. Because I realize that Victor and I are not enemies. We're just two men who got caught in a system that grinds people up and spits them out. We're just two men who loved people that the government decided were acceptable casualties. And the quiet revenge isn't killing each other. The quiet revenge is surviving. The quiet revenge is healing. The quiet revenge is building something real from the ashes of everything that's been destroyed. The retrial verdict comes down in February. Not guilty. All charges dismissed. The jury found reasonable doubt because Blake's credibility was destroyed. The jury didn't know what to believe anymore. The jury couldn't trust the government. So they acquitted Victor. Victor is released that same day. He walks out of the courthouse with his lawyers and disappears. Nobody knows where he goes. The federal government loses track of him within 48 hours. It's like he evaporates. I'm in a safe house in Connecticut waiting for my new identity to be finalized. The U.S. Marshals are processing my paperwork. New social security number. New driver's license. New history. My name is going to be Patrick Miller. I'm going to be a man who owns a bookstore in Portland, Oregon. I'm going to be invisible. My brother Mason visits me the day before I leave. He looks better. He's gained weight back. His hands aren't shaking anymore. But his eyes are still broken. I got the papers, Mason says. The divorce is final. Paige is getting the house and full custody of our daughter. I'm sorry, I say. Don't be, Mason says. I deserve it. I deserve all of it. Mom is dead because of me. Nothing I do is going to change that. It's not your fault, I say. Yes, it is, Mason says. And the thing that kills me is that you're disappearing. You're getting to walk away from all of this. You're getting to have a new life. But I'm stuck here. I'm stuck in this city where everyone knows what I did. Everyone knows that I got my mother killed. That's not true, I say. It is true, Mason says. And I have to figure out how to live with that. I have to figure out how to wake up every morning knowing that my mother is dead because of my choices. He hands me a photograph. It's from my mother's house. It's the photograph of me from my college graduation. The one Mason told me about at the cemetery. The one my mother kept in her nightstand. She believed in you, Mason says. Whatever you became, whatever you did, she believed you were doing good work. She believed you were making the world safer. Don't throw that away. Then he leaves. 2 days later, I'm in Portland. I'm Patrick Miller now. I'm unpacking boxes in a small bookstore on a quiet street. I'm building a new life from nothing. That's when the letter arrives. It's addressed to Patrick Miller at the bookstore. But I know who it's from before I open it. I know because the handwriting is distinctive. I know because only one person in the world knows where I am. Inside the envelope is a check for $500,000 and a handwritten note. Patrick, this is half of what I made from my operations. I'm giving it to you because you need a fresh start. I'm giving it to you because your mother deserves to be remembered by someone who builds something beautiful instead of something destructive. I know you're going to struggle with guilt. I know you're going to wake up at 3 a.m. wondering if you could have done something differently. I know you're going to second-guess every choice you've ever made. But here's what I want you to know. Your mother was loved. She was loved by you. She was loved by Mason. She was loved by the children she taught. Her life meant something. My daughter Eliza was also loved. She was loved by me. She was loved by her mother. She was loved by the few people who knew her before the government decided she was acceptable collateral damage. We both lost people because of a system that grinds people up for profit. We both have to figure out how to live with that. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything. I'm just asking that you remember Eleanor. I'm asking that you build something good. I'm asking that you find peace. The check is real. Use it to build whatever you want to build. Use it to make something beautiful out of all this destruction. You won't see me again. I'm going to disappear the same way you did. I'm going to find a place far away from here where nobody knows what I've done. I'm going to try to find peace too. Thank you for understanding that revenge isn't an equation. Thank you for understanding that healing is the only real revenge. Victor the First sit in the empty bookstore and cry for the first time since my mother died. I cry for Eleanor, who believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. I cry for Eliza, who died because the world is full of people like Blake who make impossible choices. I cry for Victor, who tried to balance an unbalanceable equation by taking something precious from another family. I cry for myself, for being someone who didn't know how to protect the people he loved. And then I stop crying, because I understand now that this is the moment where the story changes. This is the moment where Riley becomes Patrick. This is the moment where a man who lived in shadows finally walks into the light. 3 years pass. The bookstore is thriving. I've expanded to 2 locations. I've hired 5 employees who are loyal and dedicated. I've built a life that feels real. A life where I know who I am when I wake up in the morning. A life where I'm not lying to everyone around me. I've never been happier. I've also never been more haunted. On a Tuesday afternoon in October, exactly 3 years and 6 months after my mother's funeral, I'm standing in front of her grave. Mason is with me. He's sober now. He's been sober for 2 years. He's rebuilding his relationship with his daughter, Violet. He's learning to forgive himself. We're not alone at the cemetery. Behind us, standing at a respectful distance, is a woman. Her name is Dr. Harper. She's a therapist who specializes in trauma and family loss. I've been seeing her for 2 years. Mason has been seeing her for 18 months. The 3 of us came here together because we all needed to say goodbye to Eleanor at the same time. I think about her every day, Mason says, kneeling down to place flowers on her grave. I think about what she would think of me now. I think about whether she'd be proud or disappointed. She'd be proud, I say. She'd be proud that you're sober. She'd be proud that you're fighting for a relationship with Violet. She'd be proud that you're trying to build something good out of all this. Mason stands up and looks at me. What about you? Mason asks. Do you think she'd be proud of you? No, I say. I think she'd be confused. I think she'd want to know who I really am. I think she'd want me to tell her the truth instead of hiding who I am behind a fake name and a fake life. Dr. Harper steps forward. The truth is complicated, Dr. Harper says. Patrick Miller is your fake name. But the person you've become as Patrick Miller is real. The choices you've made as Patrick Miller are real. The bookstore you built is real. The people you've helped are real. So in a way, Patrick Miller is more honest than Riley ever was. I've spent 3 years thinking about this. I've spent 3 years trying to understand whether my new life is a continuation of my old lies or the beginning of honest living. I think my mother would be proud, I finally say. Not because I disappeared, not because I built a new identity, but because I stopped hiding from the people I love. Because I came here today and I brought my brother. Because I'm standing here being honest about the fact that I'm broken and I'm trying to fix it. A man approaches us from across the cemetery. He's wearing a suit that's too expensive for someone who's just visiting a grave. He's wearing sunglasses even though the sun is setting. He's trying very hard to look like he belongs here. But I recognize him immediately. It's Victor. Mason tenses up. Dr. Harper moves between us and Victor. But Victor just holds up his hands. I'm not here to cause trouble, Victor says. I'm just here to visit my daughter. She's buried 2 sections over. He looks at me. I wanted to see how you were doing, Victor continues. I wanted to see if the money helped. I wanted to see if you found peace. I did, I say. I found peace. I built something good. I built a life where I don't have to lie to the people I love. Good, Victor says. That's good. He pulls out an envelope and hands it to Mason. This is for you, Victor says. It's a check. It's enough money to buy a house. It's enough money to get Violet the best education. It's enough money to start over the way your brother did. I don't want your money, Mason says. I know, Victor says. But take it anyway. Use it to build something good. Use it to make your mother proud. Victor turns to leave, but then he stops. Her name was Eleanor, Victor says. I know I said that before, but I want to say it again. Her name was Eleanor. She was a good woman. She was kind. She deserved better than what the world gave her. Yes, I say. She did. I spent 14 years trying to balance an equation, Victor says. I spent 14 years thinking that if I could take something from your family, it would somehow make it okay that my daughter was taken from mine. But I was wrong. Revenge doesn't work that way. Revenge is just damage spreading to more people. He starts to walk away. Her memory is in this cemetery, Victor says over his shoulder. My daughter's memory is here too. Every time you visit your mother, you're standing in the same place where my daughter is buried. Every time you remember Eleanor, you're remembering Eliza too. That's the only revenge that matters. That's the only thing that makes any of this bearable. Then Victor disappears into the trees, and I never see him again. I need to ask you something that's been on my mind since my mother's funeral. I need to know, where are you watching this from? What city? What country? Comment down below and let me know where you're sending this message from. I want to know the world is listening. And I want to ask you something else. What kind of stories move you? What kind of betrayal hits deepest? Is it family betrayal like this one? Is it romantic betrayal? Is it betrayal by someone you trusted with your life? Tell me in the comments what stories you want to hear. Tell me what makes you feel something real. Tell me what kind of revenge stories speak to you. The ones about destruction, or the ones about healing, or the ones about quiet justice. Because I'm going to be here, telling more stories. I'm going to be bringing you more tales of betrayal and heartbreak and the slow journey toward peace. And I want to make sure these stories are the ones you want to hear. I want to make sure I'm telling you something that matters. Hit like, subscribe for more, comment your city or country, and tell me, what's your story? What betrayal has shaped your life? What revenge have you carried that you're finally ready to let go? I'll be listening. I'll be waiting. And next time, I'm bringing you something different. Not another story about a man hunting for justice. Next time, I'm bringing you the story of a woman who was silenced for 20 years by the man she married. I'm bringing you the story of her rise. I'm bringing you the story of her reclamation. I'm bringing you the story of what happens when someone who's been invisible finally decides to be seen. Standing at my mother's grave as the sun sets, I finally understand what it means to forgive. Not forgive Victor. Not forgive Blake. Not forgive Logan. Forgive myself. I forgive myself for not being there when it mattered. I forgive myself for hiding behind a badge and a mission. I forgive myself for not telling my mother the truth about who I was. I forgive myself for not saving her when I had the power to. And I understand that my mother's death doesn't have to define me anymore. Mason puts his arm around me. Dr. Harper stands nearby, witnessing this moment. And I feel something shift inside my chest. I feel the weight of 25 years finally start to lift. She knew you loved her, Mason says softly. That's all that matters. That's all she ever wanted. Yeah, I say. I think you're right. We stand together as the sun disappears behind the horizon, as darkness falls across the cemetery, as my mother's grave becomes just another shadow among thousands of shadows. But Eleanor isn't a shadow anymore. She's a memory that's real. She's a love that transformed me. She's the reason I stopped hiding. She's the reason I became Patrick Miller. She's the reason I'm finally free.